evening, everyone. I think we can begin the program now.
All right, let's start with discussing what you think are the 3 most important skills to master in fly fishing for trout. And I'm gonna have all 3 of you answer that. Let's start at the end there with Scott.
Am I okay? Is this on? No. How's that? Oh, okay. There's some very basic things you got to have, like how to cast and read water and get a good drift and not fall over while you're wading and pick a fly and tie some knots. But once you get past those, yeah. Once you get past those basic things, I think the most important skill you can develop, and it's a lifelong skill, and that's just always be asking yourself questions. Be an observer and say, what's going on? Why did the trout eat that fly? Why did they not eat that fly? You know, why did I catch fish here? Why did I not catch fish in another place? So that just always ask yourself. That's kind of my mantra. Ask yourself. Observe. Figure out what does it mean? And kind of what goes along with being an observer, I think, is enjoy your surroundings. It's not just about catching the fish. Enjoy everything about it, because we really live in some absolutely stunning natural world, and the more you know about it, the more you appreciate it, the more you're going to enjoy your fishing, whether you're catching anything or not. So my thing is, number 1 skill to develop, get the heart of a poet and the mind of a con man, and you will be a good fly angler.
Okay, let me just quickly say we had a request for an introduction for these guys. Scott Richmond, Rick Hafele, Dave Hughes, 3 legends of the sport.
Yep, Perin.
Many books. I think at least 4 or 5 for Scott. He used to have a blog, website called Westfly. 10 books for Scott. Jeez, I'm way behind the times, buddy. Sorry. And I did want to mention that I fished with 2 out of 3 of you guys. What's the matter with you? Yeah. Okay, so Rick, you're next on that question. So discussing what you think the most important skill to master in fly fishing for trout is.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks everybody for coming. We haven't rehearsed this, so I have no clue what answer Scott's going to have or what answer Dave's going to have. And so it's going to be interesting to see how much we agree or disagree. And I have to say on this question, the one that I had written down and was thinking about it was observation. So we're agreeing on that, Scott. I always think the thing you need to do is when you get out on a river and you're deciding what you're going to fish, where you're going to fish, is observe what's happening. Are there swallows in the air feeding? If there are, that's a clear sign something's out there that fish might be feeding on. And if you walk down to the river where things flying out of the grass, caddis or grasshoppers. And so any signals you're getting, and observe the foam that's along the bank. They'll be dead, or not dead, but they'll be the empty shucks of the insects that have been hatching. And so there's a lot of places you can look to observe besides just watching the water and waiting for a trout to rise, which of course you want to do too. So that's the first thing on my list, is just be a good observer. Enjoy the the area you're in, the place you're fishing, like Scott was saying. And the second thing on my list was sort of along some of the lines you were suggesting too, is learn to cast. But practice at home or in a park. You don't need to wait till you get to the stream to all of a sudden go, dang, man, I'm just throwing a tailing loop every cast and this wind is killing me. I can't get it out there. Practice at home. It's fun. And if you spend some time practicing your casting, you'll be amazed at the increase in fish catching you do. And I have to tell a story about Dave. I usually don't compliment Dave, but there's usually not much to compliment him about. But I have to compliment him on I've fished with Dave now for like 50 years. And I've been with Dave longer than either of all my wives. But nonetheless, when I go fishing with Dave, he almost always catches the biggest fish of the day. We're out with guides somewhere in Montana, and they come back at the end of the day, how'd you do? Oh, Dave caught this 22, we've never seen one like it, or wherever we're at, it's like, it really gets under my skin, to be honest. But there's a reason he does that. This is my theory. He grew up in Astoria, and he grew up fishing little streams in the Coast Range. There's stuff around everywhere to grab your fly when you're casting. He's learned to make really good, accurate casts in tight places. And that skill, he's able to put a fly in that 6-inch spot that nobody gets near, and that's where the big fish is hanging out. So learn to cast and practice casting, and we'll touch on some related things coming up about that too, but those are my two.
Well, I think the most important skill in fly fishing is whining. And if you fish with guys like Richmond, you fish with guys like Hafele, then they're almost always catching fish and they have the right fly, and you almost always don't. Maybe Jeff too. I haven't fished with Jeff, but anyway, if they have the right fly and you don't, what's the best way to get the right fly is to go stand next to them and start whining. And they'll give you the right fly to get you to go away. So that's one. The second one is a little more serious, is become predacious. And I say this, I had a nephew who would stand fly fishing and he'd be leaning back and he'd be just not looking like he was predacious, like he's you remember, trout are predators. So become predacious, and one way to do that is just to think, lean forward and try to catch the things and try to seriously outthink them and outsmart them and catch them and just become a predator. But also remember that trout are predators and that they're trying to outwit you, so it's fair. But honor the senses of the trout. Honor their sight, honor their hearing. They can hear, they have that lateral line. They can also smell. One time I was on the Deschutes and I put sunscreen on and then waded into an eddy and there was rising fish all around me and they just all went out just like that. So they do smell, so honor those senses of trout. But the one most important skill in fly fishing for trout, I think, is reading trout water. And I'm not going to get into reading trout water, how to do it, but if you fish where there's no fish, which is about 75% of the water, you're going to catch just what you fished in, no fish. If you fish in the other 25% of the water, which has certain symbols by which you can recognize it, there's fish there, and you might not have the right fly, you might not have the right presentation, but at least you got a chance. So reading trout water, I consider, next to whining, next to becoming predacious, the most important skill in fly fishing.
Awesome answers, you guys. Thank you.